First things first, wet the paper and wet it down to the horizon. You can include the hills in that if you wish. So plenty of clean water. Then look sideways at it to see if you've got puddles or see if you've got dry patches. So you can see a sheen on it. I'm wetting it where the hills are as well. So I'm looking, I can see a nice consistent sheen on it. You can see the sheen on it as well because you can see the lights. And that's what you need. You don't need puddles. You don't need it gathering up in your tape. So go run your brush around the tape that's holding it down so that it's just consistent all over. Now, if you're in somewhere that's really warm and or you've got a breeze from air conditioning or something like that, your paper is going to dry out quicker. So put plenty on. And if necessary, just wait before you start painting. Let it soak in, and if necessary, put some more on. Now I know that my yellow, for some reason, I'm not sure why, makes my paper dry out quicker. I know it's weird, but it does. I know where my sun is because I put the X there. I've still got a nice sheen, so I'm going to start. So I've got just plain lemon yellow, and I'm going to put it across the sky, just like that. And maybe go up the sky a bit there. It'll be covered up later. Then with a clean tissue, I'm making a little circle like that. Not too big. Just like that. Sound like Tommy Cooper. Now, I know that some of you will not know who Tommy Cooper is. Okay, so where I put my X, I'm going to plonk it down and push and hopefully lift it off. Yeah, and it's almost a circle, which is good. All right, on to the next bit. So I'm now going with some raw sienna, which is the mustardy colour, or it resembles baby poo, I think. And I'm just going to the right side and pulling some clouds in. And then immediately washing the brush. You don't even have to. Go into the burnt sienna and pull a bit more in. Then we go into Payne's Grey. We can have a catch up in a minute because I'm going to have to, this needs doing fairly quickly. And a few swipes. Don't worry about them all mixing up because there's every chance if you do mix it, it will go green. And I'm getting my board and I'm just lifting it. And letting it flow down to one way. And I always do it this way. I don't know why, but I do. So I've got loads of paint gathering up here, and I just suck it up with my brush. That is still wet, so I can actually make that come into there more. and that one down there. Just make your sky really as you want it. If it's started to dry, don't touch it, because otherwise it will mark. Yeah, I'm putting a little bit more of that. Oh, I've just nearly covered my sun up. I am. So I get my little bit of paper again and plonk it on. And then because it's now not as round as it was, I'm just going to tease that round. There we are. That'll do. There's water up here again. So that is it. Okay, now for the hills. So I'm going to take a little bit of that Payne's grey I put on the palette, and this hill at the back here, I'm going to do very light. It's a very light paint, and it's just, and I've got some wet. Look at that yellow is still wet, which is weird because normally yellows disappear and dry very quickly. So it's just a very light hill in the distance. And we come to the ones in the foreground, which I've mixed a little bit of the Payne's grey with the burnt sienna, and you get a brown, a browny colour. And I want a little bit of more burnt sienna that I'm just dropping into that brown, neat burnt sienna, and into that brown that I made. And I'm going to do the same over this side. Join them up. There's a gap rather than a. All right. And a little bit of burnt sienna, particularly around where the sun is, because that's making that an orange glow. You can even use orange in it. Orange to each side and light where the sun is. Will give it that glow. That's I have got a line here, which I am going to make as part of this hill. I've got a line of paint. I didn't dry it properly. There we are. It's now the hill with yellow on it, which is fine. I've got a bigger hill at the back than I have had previously. That's so I'm going to wet all the foreground now, including the haystacks. Don't go round them, hay bales. Just wet that foreground. It's going to be a quick wash, a graduated wash. And start off with a mix of yellow and raw sienna right up by that line where the field meets the trees. So I come down a bit towards you, halfway, well, so that it's 3/4 of the way down. Then I'm going to have a mix of the mustardy yellow, raw sienna with some burnt sienna for the next colours. It all blends together because of the water on the paper. Now I've got just plain burnt sienna. So that will dry. And I get a small brush and I go into a mix of the burnt sienna and the Payne's grey, which gives me a brown. And I just very gently dot some lines there, along those lines that we drew in, just not too much. And they spread out, which makes it look like weeds and stuff. You can actually just dot something a little bit higher in it, just to give it the idea that there's weeds growing in there. With that same brush, just go underneath and just wiggle it about a bit so that you soften that edge. I'm not wiping it or anything in between. I'm just going backwards and forwards. It gives it a bit of 3D sense. These are difficult. Water, not too much, but just enough to I've now got watermark on this, so I'm just patting it up and just going in with a bit of paint just to cover up what I've done. So this side accidentally has come out darker than that side, which is fine because that's where my sun is, so I've actually done that right. So that's darker. We've got the sun streaming down there, so that's good. And I take the little bit of that brown we just made and just put a little bit I'm going to darken that up even more. And the corners, although we are going to put something in them. Just brushing it so that it grades into it. Dry brush what you've got on the I'll not put any more paint on my brush, just dry brushing that to give the feeling of perspective. That one needs a bit further. And dry brush again, some of that, more of that brown. And by dry brush, I mean you're not re-wetting the paper. That's it. That's dry brush enough. So that's got movement down along those lines now. And then we're going to dry. I could do this little hedge along the back here, so it's all dry. So with some green I've mixed from Payne's Grey, and I'm just dropping in a little hedge line. I'm varying it slightly so that it's not all one standard height. And the same with this other side here. So make some bigger, dot it somewhere, just dot and leave a bit of a gap somewhere. You could even be brave and put a tree in. Yeah, a canopy of a tree there, or several trees. We'll put the trunks in a bit. So some of that brown that I mixed up previously with the rigger, just pull up some trunks. Stick a couple of branches out the top. You've got trees. Remember, if you've got trees, you need some shadows. So with a bluey mauvey, so put a little bit of pink in with your Payne's Grey if you've got it. Just wiggle some shadows down, and then with some water on your hands, no, not with water on your hands, just pour them across either with a really dry brush or your finger. But if you just get a dry brush and just gently pull, you'll get some shadows. Talking of shadows, we need something along the bottom of that hedge. So just in places, just dot it into that hedge line, just to give it a variation in colour. I used a bit of brown and a bit of the green. So that it's not all one colour. we have got shadows on because the sun's directly behind. So underneath this haystack is a shadow, and this one, the right one's a bit of a triangle because it's at an angle. The same with this little one over here. That's a straight one. That's a straight one. That's definitely a straight one. And we haven't got one over there. That's a little bit of a triangle. That's more of a triangle, as is that one. That's straight. And we've got some shadows then. Did I do one over there? No, I don't think I did. Oh well. Probably needs some more in. There's one there. Oh, this should be some over here, really. I'm just doing the shadows, and there's two over there. So back to the raw sienna and just block in that hay bale, straw bale. And then with a little bit of the brown, just touch the bottom of it whilst it's still wet, and that will give it the roundness. And just touch the top of it, so that gives it round, and a little bit all in that the end of it. And we just got to do that for this other big one. Just block it in. Okay. And with the brown, just, oh, way too much water. Now with the other ones, because they're so far away, you just want a brown, but not as dark as what you use for the shadow. So it's a sort of a darker raw sienna, just to, oh, we've got one there. I better put these in that I think gave shadows to. That one needs to be a bit darker. I think I need a bit more, but if you're happy with what you've got, remember they're small the further away they get. So I'm going to do one here. So he's quite big. I just There. And his shadow is not as pronounced, so okay, so we've done that. We've got some trees in. This one's shadow is not as long as him, so just go and check your dimensions for everything. And this one's shadow has disappeared totally. So lots of use of a rigger now. With that green, come on along one or two of the lines at your end of it and not the far end, and just dot in some green, some weeds, because there's weeds there, and it just gives it the, it's not manicured garden. Don't do them all the way down the line, just a few at the top. You can make some a bit darker by putting a little bit more Payne's grey in that green mix that you used, and just dotting a few under, dotting a bit of that colour underneath the green you just put in. Give it depth and texture. Then we'll do that one there. We've got one here. And then, as before, with a little bit of water on your brush, just agitate the bottom of it, and so that it softens the edges. So just and as it gets further into the distance, just little touches of a fairly light green, or light any color really, well, not pink, just to bring out the definition. Look at your straw bales and see if they need any further fiddling. Then we need to do the foreground here, which is the hedgerow. But first, before we do that, I'm going to put in the fence post. So more brown, so it's Payne's grey and raw sienna. No, burnt sienna. So it comes a grey brown. And the fence post, which, be brave, down to the bottom, although the grass will. And then another one. Put them at odd angles because it's an unloved field. And that goes off into the distance. What else have we got? Oh, whilst we're at it and got dark, you can use that brown, if it's fairly dark, to do the birds, if you're going to do birds. So remember, birds are flat, or sometimes they go like that. As they disappear off into the distance. Just dotting in a bit more dark for those trees, because and maybe I just make those trunks just a little bit thicker, not too thick. Then green, back to big brush. And the green that you just made with the Payne's grey and the lemon yellow, darken it up a bit, more Payne's grey in it. Right, okay, so we're going to go across the bottom. Put some pure Payne's grey, dot that in. Then I'm going to leave that a minute or two. And with something that scrapes, I've got one of those. If you've got a credit card, obviously not one that you're using, use that. If you've got anything that's got a bit of a point, and you could even use, I don't know whether you could use one of these. No. A credit card is probably best, or I know, one of those I've got. But you know those brush things? You could use that and just flick some grass in. Little strokes, big strokes. The grass should be, or the green should be dry enough for you to push it out the way, and it stays out the way. And it's something that you've got to get on with quite quickly. I've dried. So a little bit more paint. That's it. I'm putting some more at the top there because I want that to be higher. So you can then a bit of splat, really. So got some white acrylic, some white watercolor, or some white gouache. You want a fairly liquid mix of it. Load your brush up. Cover up what you don't want splattered. Put your finger out. And splat. Cover up, load your brush, put your finger out, hit the brush on the finger, splat. If you'd like some orange flowers in amongst that lot too, clean your brush off, go into an orange, put it in the white that you've been using, and it's now, they're opaque and they will show. Don't hit your finger so hard that it hurts. Oh look, I managed to miss a piece totally. It's going to be a bit of a bravery thing because we want that to look brown and green on the field and with bits and bobs in it. So we're covering up the sky. So in that brown that you mixed up, make it nice and loose. Get your brush in it and tap and splat. Move your cover up. Splat that one. Then go into a bit of the green that you made. And splat that. Then you notice that you managed to get some in the sky, even though you covered it up. So just with a clean wet brush, just wiggle it about a bit and then dab it with a tissue. Or if all else fails, make it into a bird. We've got extra birds. More fiddling maybe, just a little bit of brown down the side of that line. And then wiggled and blended in. And the same with that one, just a line down there. Then blended in. Don't do it on all of them or everywhere, just where you think, because less is more. So they say. And get your green, and if you've got any big bits where you've got no grass popping out, like that bit there, just my white has disappeared totally. I'm going to get my white. I'm just going to dab some in. Just little dots. Daisies in the grass. I'm going to do the same with the orange. Just gives it a feeling of being a bit different. I think that's probably it. Just fiddling around with my shadow there. Don't forget to give it a brush sideways. And I think I'm just going to use a bit of Payne's Grey on the fence post here because it's in the shadow, the back side of it. That needs to be quite dark because it's totally in shadow. The other side of it has got the sun on it. And if you want, do a few tall grasses. Do your tall grasses. If you want to do some with seed heads. And I'm going to stop fiddling. She says, still fiddling away to her heart's content. brush down.